What's up, everybody? George Chief from the wagon. This week we're going to be doing something I've been pushing off for about 4 years. I've had this thing sitting on the shelf, and we're going to install my Chinese diesel heater into my 62 panel bus. This is a Chinese diesel heater that I got off Amazon. This was $139 for the whole setup you see here. We've got the actual heating unit. This is the distribution tube. This is going to put the heat into the vehicle. They give you an extra chunk of it because you have the option of 2 outward vents on it. And everything you see here, minus this, everything you see here came in that package. This is your exhaust. This is your fuel pump. They give you an entire bag of hardware. Looks like an inline fuel filter for the diesel. This is a thermostat that gets mounted to the wall, and that is a key fob that turns it on. So if you're driving, you can actually hit the key fob and turn the heat on. It has a wiring loom that is pre-wired for everything. If you notice, it has plugs on it, like that plug matches that plug there. This black plug is for the fuel pump, and this is for that thermostatic switch right there. And they give you, looks like, several feet of diesel fuel line. This is an air intake filter that goes onto this line here. On the bottom of this unit, you have an exhaust and an air inlet, and this is the fuel supply. This will get mounted to the floor of the bus. There are extremely vague instructions here. When I say vague, they are about as vague as it gets on how everything goes together. We're going to look at where we plan on putting in the vehicle. It's going to go into my bus, and it's going to go there. And that's the, I'm sorry, that template plate came with it as well. I'm going to be cutting that into the bus. That's why it was in there. But I plan on putting the heater underneath there. I'm going to try and put my fuel supply in the engine compartment and my fuel pump in line with that. So let's get started on it. We are under my seat. This is driver's side. This is my wheel well. I have a Westphalia bed in here. So it's up, and this is basically where I store tools and whatnot. But I'm going to occupy this space here for my diesel heater. That's where I would like to put it. So it has ducting that comes off of here, and I'll have an outlet on this side and an outlet on that side. Another thing I just did is I opened up the wiring loom that came with this, because that's going to determine where a lot of things end up going, and it's plenty long. Where it connects here, there's plenty of wire to come up even if I were to go behind my paneling here to put my thermostat up by where we sleep, so it's adjustable. It comes with this template here, and this is going to be its secondary plate underneath the car, I would assume, that sandwiches everything together. And then the holes you have to make are for your fuel, your exhaust, and your air inlet. You have to punch those through, so I'm going to use this as a template to mark where I'm going to put those holes. And they're going to exit out from underneath the vehicle. My air inlet will be underneath the vehicle, as will the exhaust. And I'm going to make sure the exhaust goes all the way to the edge of the bus, because I don't want it to be running all night and all we smell are fumes coming in through everything underneath the bus. So I'm going to do a little more planning before we actually jump into cutting anything. I really want to make sure that we're putting this in the optimal place. Put it all the way in this corner here, so I ended up popping a 3.5-inch hole through the wall there, because this is the air inlet, and I'm trying to keep as much stored space, because this is underneath my seat. I'm trying to keep as much space so that here ends about here. Of course, it's going to have tubing coming off of it that's going to do the ducting, and I'm going to do one duct here and one duct there. And we got our holes drilled along here, intake, fuel, and exhaust here. This hole is what holds my structure in. So we got a lot of workarounds we're doing here. This thing came with minimal instructions. When I say minimal, I mean minimal. And half of them are the worst English you've ever read in your life. And I almost put it here. There would have been a good spot, but my exhaust and intake would have had to been extended so far to go around the torsion housing. I found this to be an easier option, and it's going to be cleaner in the long run. Just kind of figuring out and mapping where we're going to put everything. I'll go outside and show you guys a couple more things. I've made the executive decision to switch over to a turret mounting for this reason right here. I want you guys to look at what's happening here. So this is the exhaust, and this is the air intake over here. This stays nice and cool. I don't worry about this one. This one is going to heat up. And my floor in this area is wood. So I'm just a little nervous about that. It's a bit too close for comfort for me. So they sell what's called turret style, meaning I'm going to be cutting a large hole in this area, and that way it's shielded with stainless steel all the way around that hole, and it has plenty of berth so this heat won't transfer over something else and potentially catch on fire. And I'm going to have to also move this oil line. I'll have to pull some slack from that way and get this hard mounted on here, so there's no danger of this while I'm driving, if I'm running my heater, that potentially burning that. Honestly, the turret style feels a lot safer to me. It makes a much bigger opening. It's wrapped in stainless steel, so I shouldn't have the same problems. This was my solution for mounting this because it's supplied with this as a flat plate. Obviously, I put it into the brake and got my height that I wanted to be able to put the clamps on to try this method, but just after some afterthought, when I slept on it overnight, I said, I don't like that. So that's why we're changing that. My fuel source is going to be over here. This is basically the other battery side, and I'm not utilizing it for a battery right now, so that's where I'm going to put my diesel tank at. This is the fuel pump that comes with this setup. I've watched other people's videos. A lot of guys in the UK run these things on the regular, and they install them in their dailies. So what I found out is this needs to be installed at a 30-degree angle so it doesn't create an air pocket in it and stop moving fuel. That right there is how I'm going to mount this. So basically bring it back over here. This does not get hot, so I'm not worried about it being next to that oil line. And then I'm going to put a rivnet into the frame right there and run that along that way. And we'll have our hard poly line coming down here and going in to feed that right there. Once the turret style is on there, we'll have much more access to that. It will be easier to get onto it. And there we have it. We ended up putting a fender washer on this because when I did it without it, that bolt just kind of sinks into this. I put Ocean on a task here. This is going to be the mount for what will be the fuel tank that we're going to be putting right here. So the basic idea is we got the 3 mounting holes that the tank is going to sit here. It's going to get a break along that edge there. There'll be rivnuts on the bottom and in here that's going to hold the tank on, and that's going to go to the floor. And then we have a separate plate that's going to go underneath the bus and basically sandwich it in the secondary battery tray to keep it along here. I want the tank to kind of finish flush right here. We'll see when we actually get the piece made. When we bolt it in there, we'll mark the floor and get it cut for it. There's our gas tank bracket. All the holes have been drilled for the rivnuts, and we painted it with the roll cage chassis black. And this is going to be my washer plate that goes underneath. Because of the space constraints of that other tank, I made, this is actually a coolant tank. We made this bracket and it's mounted here. You can see my fuel line punching through to the bottom there. And if you remember yesterday, we installed the pump underneath there. I went over by McFadendale and I picked up reducers. I got a nylon one, which looks like it matches this here. I also have a brass one that we pieced together. That does, this is the bigger line coming off that tank, and this is the smaller line, which is going to go to the fuel pump. I'm going to figure out which one works the best. I wanted to give myself a few options. I'm leaning towards this. We did put some Teflon thread sealant in there, the high temp. We just got that dude in there. So now we're going to finish running the fuel and everything to it. The turret is not here. The turret will be here tomorrow. So the unit is still not in place, but we're going to run the fuel line over to it, into its prospective location where it's going to be underneath the car, and make sure we have plenty of slack on it. So we're probably going to take my wheel off of that side, run all the fuel line. The fuel line's very small, as you see from this, like it's tiny little stuff. So we're just going to use little items like this to hold it in place. There's a possibility that I may put a few of these in there, and these are going to zip tie it. I think these are going to be my solution also for the 3-inch hose for this, because these hold a zip tie on the surface. So what I'll be able to do is figure out where this touches on that wood, put the board there, then a zip tie is going to basically hold this in place. I think that's going to be the best solution and the cleanest look for it. So let's do that right now. We're going to run our fuel line to pump and up to the front, and then we're also going to get that wiring buttoned up underneath the seat. This is that reducer I picked up. So this is our feed line coming out of the tank you saw from up above. This is the mount, or this is the fuel pump they gave us. These are the clamps that came with it. And there's that hard poly line. We have it secured to the frame rail as it comes down, and it's just kind of dangling over here until we finish it out. We have no fuel in the system as of yet, and obviously we won't until we connect everything to it. We're going to bring the wiring for the fuel pump in, and I'm going to punch it through the back over here, come on this side of the frame rail and cross over when I get to the pump and plug it in over here. Currently what I'm working on now, I'm going to hole saw my ducting in the front. So I'm going to do some measurements, make my little crosshair to go off of, and have matching holes, one on each side, for the ducting that's going to actually provide the heat into the bus. So in our kit, this cap comes off of that, and then you have 3 countersunk holes right there. So when you put that through, it'll actually get screwed in place so it's not constantly popping out. I bought a 3-inch hole saw specifically for this job. As you can see, it cuts out right to the size. Stoked on that. They should be symmetrical. And I'll get these dudes screwed in, and I'll show you how I plan on mapping the tubing in there. This is a 90-degree that I purchased. This is what's actually going to attach to the blower of the heater and then connect to my splitter that's going to then shoot it to the other place. I have Ocean putting this in some paint right now. Roll case chassis black. Heater's going to go there. One vent is obviously way offset from that, and unfortunately this doesn't stretch long enough to make it. I bought this to be my 2 couplers when I put the 90 on there, but this expands quite a bit, so this is going to make it to my split now, and then this is going to be what puts my coupler onto the machine. So I got these things here. This is the same piece that I used to secure the fuel line in the back. You can run a zip tie through it to secure it. So what I'm looking at is I'm putting this up on the board, and I'm seeing where it's making contact with the board, and that's where I'm going to put this. And that way, if I put a zip tie around it, the center's there. As you pull into it, it's going to hold it strong to that one point right there. We had a change of plans. I moved the thermostat to the passenger side now instead of the driver's side. This panel is much more accessible to get on the back side of it than that one. That one, let me show you. That panel goes from floor to ceiling and all the way back there to the front of the bus there. I would have to remove this and my baseboard on my flooring on that side, and I didn't want to do that. So we're improvising. Works out better anyways. I can look over my shoulder while I'm driving and see if it's operating, because this is a display screen that shows like the fan operation, all that good stuff. So 1.25" drill bit up here, and it's basically right to the edge of that. I'll bring in closer so you can see. So 1.25" bit right there, and you can just see the edge of it sticking through there, so you know the bottom edge of it's right there, so it's not going to pinch a wire and ruin it. That's the main thing I was trying to avoid. Down here I have another 1.25" hole, and that's where this plug is going to go into. This plug is too big for just your regular size tiny hole to fit that wiring in, and I don't have the means to depin it. We make do with what we got. I'll be able to run it in there. The other end of that leash is right about here. Plug the 2 into each other, and then that is going to run along top here, and then the machine's down there where it plugs into, because this is all one loom. So I really can't change anything about it. The way it's set up is the way it's set up. So that loom is going to run along the top there, and then plug into the machine there. And I think it's going to look cleaner, I'll have mounting areas for that to protect it since this opens and shuts, but if you look here, my sides are about 1 inch lower than this, so it has plenty of room to where it's not going to get slammed on anything when this seat opens and shuts to become a bed. I'm just going to hang this up here, connect my loom back there, and have the wire come out here, and we're going to call it quits for the day. We are back inside the bus. This is where my wiring came out yesterday that we ran through that wall right here, and so I want to secure all this in place. So I bought some little tabs that we're going to screw in there to hold that nice and tight up against there so it can't ever fall out. Let me get you guys turned around. And this is where the machine's going to go, and this is where the plug end is. We have 2 more leads that come off of this. 3 actually. We got a positive and a negative. And then we have the fuel pump lead. So I'm going to get this secured, and I'm actually going to do a rundown like that with it as well to make sure it can't flop around. And then we're going to punch a hole through here and get our fuel pump wiring over to the fuel pump. That line secured all the way down, that electrical connection, and there. Everything else on this side of it, all these wires here, need to go through there. This is where we're going to pick up power. I'm going to utilize my fuse box I already have on my battery box. So my frame's there, so I'm going to have to punch through right about here to follow the frame up and over. So I deep-in this so I can use a much smaller hole to go through. I didn't want to have to put that whole head into it. I'm more comfortable with this. This is an injector connection. I do have a deep pinning kit here. If you're using this same kit, this is the one that got it. Goes on top and bottom, and I just kind of wiggled it and the tabs came off. We're going to punch a small hole there now with a smaller grommet, which I'm much happier about, to get my wiring outside of there. I'm going to drill a pilot hole, taking my power out to this area right here. Now we're going to switch over to a rotocut bit. I'm using a 5/8 rotocut bit here. Now the grommet I'm using is a Wolfsburg West grommet, part number 111971911. It's a multi-purpose grommet, hence the 5/8. So I'm going to punch a little hole in it, and then I'll be putting it in there. I apologize, guys. I got a little happy. My tour plate showed up a little late in the day, and I just went right to installing it and completely forgot to film anything. Basically, it's pretty simple. 4-inch hole saw, cut it in the floor, put the tour plate. Dunkel was underneath. He screwed the box to the plate, and then we screwed the plate to the floor. I've already run the wiring to the fuel pump, and I've already run the wiring to the fuse panel on my battery. I have not connected it, but everything is run in place. We're going to have to go underneath and put the air intake, the exhaust, and the fuel line and connect it to there. I apologize for not filming it. Like I said, I was pretty excited. I've been waiting for it all dang day. We were working on Bill T's bus, getting a bunch of stuff dialed in on the carbon cab. And when it showed up, we just kind of got right to it, and I didn't break out cameras. And that should be pretty slick when all is said and done. Then I'll be done with everything inside the bus here. That's where we're at, guys. I'm going to get this thing buttoned up, hopefully get it fired up tomorrow. I'm going to explain what a turret mount is now. And it's actually for that very reason you see there. The way the floor does not follow it. So this particular one I ordered is 33 millimeters. Slightly a little bit longer than 1 inch. And it makes it past your corrugation, past my wood subfloor, everything. Dang near perfect. It all depends on what substrate you have on yours as to what length turret you'll purchase. But this is what it does. Takes the unevenness out of it. Plus, now instead of this exhaust pipe going through wood, this exhaust pipe is now encased in this nice stainless, what I consider to be much more safe environment. Less chance of it bringing the fire over to the wood next to it. I've already used seam sealer on top when I screwed this in. Since I tried a different mounting method as well, I'll have to seam seal these 2 holes I had put in the floor. It's gonna basically put some seam sealer there and they should be golden. Now it's pretty simple. We gotta connect our fuel source, that one right there, exhaust, and then our air intake. And then we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna mount and run all that stuff. We want them to be exiting towards the rear. Also, I want my exhaust pipe is gonna be in the forward position here, and I do want it to stick past the bus about 3 inches because I want my exhaust to go away from the bus, not collect underneath here and then come inside the bus eventually. Turret mount just made it so much cleaner of an install. Just the look of it even. So I would definitely recommend it. I'm gonna try and put some links in my description this time where you can see these parts and pieces that I'm using. I'm gonna put everything additional that I purchased on there. Update. Everything is in and functioning and working. When I put the pump in, I forgot, you do have to put this filter in line. It's basically like a water separator, also a fuel filter. So now this is operational and functional. This is what I ended up doing. Secure this oil line out of the way. We got the header wrapped. This line seems to be my troublesome line. It seems to be weeping diesel. It's not a ton of it, but it's still coming out and I'm not a fan of that. So we're gonna try and address this some more. I put this bracket onto the outrigger, mounted the muffler there so it's secure, and then I mounted the muffler on the inside rocker here. You like how it's not connected. That's some fancy metalwork someone did. This is now connected to the rocker and pointed out so it will exhaust away from the bus. Here is my air inlet. I put a little bracket there and there's a zip tie basically holding it in place here. And that's what that black line going over my torsion housing is right there. I think this came out clean. And from my understanding, I'll be able to get through a whole weekend on just what's in there. We are only going to use the heater when we're sleeping. It's not like we hang out in the bus at Buses by the Bridge. We pretty much hang out in the campsite. I've got a bunch of parts on order. When I get back from Buses, I'll be changing a lot of this up that's underneath the seat. I ordered some more of the black hose. I'm not a fan of having silver there. I don't like the little dryer duct I put there. It is useful and it will get me through this weekend, but next weekend it's going to be changed to 2 hard 90s made by the same company that makes the other ducting I have in there, and it's just gonna look a lot cleaner. I got an 8-foot piece of it, so I may reroute it to the back side instead of having it up against the front wall. I'll explain that when I get inside there. This is what I ordered the new piece to replace. I think I'm going to change the whole configuration of it. Because that angle in the back, most of that space is unusable. So what I'm gonna do is, now this hose will run here, go there, and then this won't be here. It's gonna come straight back this way, and I'll have my ducting on that back wall. This stuff when I'm putting these bags in, they hit my tubing right there. I don't have a lot of this secured because I know I'm changing it, but that's where we're at there. The wiring on this was super easy. We did the one behind the panel there that you see coming out. The fuel pump is run, and all I did with the extra slack, because I already has a plug on it, is I bundled it up there in a zip tie. That is just a direct plug into the box here, to that actual unit. And the power lead goes onto my fuse panel. I'll show you guys that up front. I'm very happy with how easy this was to install as far as plug and play and how useful that little thing is right there. I figured that out last night. And basically, I'm going to give you a review. This is my first time using it. I'll let you know what my wife thinks about it too, since we do sleep in here. She should enjoy it since it'll free up room here. We're no longer going to have a Mr. Buddy sitting here. So I got to finish cleaning up this bus. It's the Monday before Buses by the Bridge, and I still have a lot of things to button up here. So this is my control box. You see it reads the 12 volt, and that's telling me the current temperature right now. So it's right between 14 and 15 degrees Celsius. So just to turn it on, like if you just want to power up the unit, it's actually got a power button right here. And you'll click that on. I'm going to do it right now to show you guys. So you see the little flame shows, the little exhaust shows up on there. It's showing that the glow plug's getting hot, and you got your inlet and outlet of air going on there. It's showing there. I believe that means I'm on a timer. Not 100% sure how I get in the menu and figure that. Like I said, the instructions for this, vague is an understatement. The unit's turned on now. So the unit is on down here. So it takes a minute for it to prime it. It's got the glow plug getting warm right now, and it will start momentarily. I'll kick it back on once the unit is fired up. I don't know if you can hear it, but like, that's the sound of the pump that I'm talking about. And it's not very loud, say if you're having like a regular conversation or whatnot, but when you're trying to sleep and it's dead quiet, it's a big deal. All right, so now I'm starting to feel a breeze coming out of here. I'm gonna put the microphone by it so you can hear it. That's picking up steam right there. It's coming up to temperature. So right now it's blowing a cool breeze out. I think the fan just gets going. So that's what that's about. But it does not take long. Like right now it's already a warm breeze. We went from cold air to warm air in a matter of moments there. The setting is set on 3. You go up and down with these arrows. So I'll take it to 2, back to 3, up to 4. I think it goes up to 6. Let's see, 5, 6. Yeah, so 6. It's the highest it can go. You see the 2 little reds right there. And you can set it up for different things. Like I can put it either it's just going to be on whatever we like a manual setting, or you can actually put on a temperature setting. Like you would hit this button and then you get into the menu somehow and you change it, and then it'll just be on temperature. That little indicator right there shows that the pump is working. So this thing is actually going right now. Yep, hot air is coming out of that. And I'll show you guys. Let me go get my thermostatic gun. For reference, let me shoot that right there. So we see we're at 52 degrees, and it's basically where you see that little laser dot. Okay, now we're going to put that laser dot into here. So 116, 118. So we've already got pretty warm air, like really warm air coming out of there right now. I wonder how hot that's getting. Ooh, 143. Move that bag away from it. So I'm going to change. I have parts and pieces to change all this up. I just need time at this point. We're going to completely reroute this whole system. I got a really nice Type 90 that's the same make as this. That's going to go here, so it'll clean up this mess. That'll bring this even further in. And I think I'm going to go to the back side and run the tubing along the back in the higher area. Along there is where I think I'm going to run it. Because you see, even when my bags are there, that space is empty. It just seems more work-wise if I have it coming up here and come to those. Let's go into my engine compartment so I can show you things in there. So when it's on, if the mic's picking that up, as you can hear, that dude's on right there. You can hear the pump. It's down there. So now you can really hear the pump. That's me taking the microphone and holding it up there. There's my fuel tank. So when I talked about I already had a built-in power supply, this is a fuse panel, and I'm going to be bringing this to market if people are interested in it. So basically you can make yourself a separate fuse panel for running all your accessories. This thing runs my hard start relay, my oil cooler fan, my fuel pump, and the keyed power to my MSD and a few other things I'm getting keyed power from, like the relays, are pulling keyed power from here. And then this last one, the open one I had, is now utilized for my heater. So there's a fuse in here. For those of you not familiar, this is like an oval window fuse panel. And it runs our same ceramic ones that I have up front. And that's what we'll have for there if one of these pops. So this one here is for the diesel heater. I'm very happy with it. I mean, it works so well. I know I bought too big of a unit, but that's okay. Better be too big than too small. But I mean, just coming in here right now, We're at 165, 146, 142, 157 coming out of that ducting right now. Same thing over there. We're in the 100s there. So my firewall is already 62 degrees because it hits on here. I'm behind the wheel of my bus now, and this unit comes with a key fob right here, and it has an on and an off button and a plus and a minus. So you're not going to be able to see it from here, but I'll show you. Let's see, as I kick that up, I hit plus. Now went to 3. It's at 4. And since we're getting ready to take off here soon, I'm going to hit the off button. You see right there, off. So I hit off and I hold it. There it goes. Caught it that time. Doesn't work every time. Sometimes she's a miss, but the screen now says off. So this thing is going to power down. It's going to start cooling itself off. It shuts the pump off. It shuts the fire off. It continues with the fan to cool the internal units down. So you don't just shut it off cold and it has to sit there and cool off on its own and potentially start a fire underneath there, because your casing gets pretty hot. It gets up to the 180s, 190s in there. So you wouldn't want that just to sit there and air cool. You can feel it right now. It's still blowing very lightly. I used this when I was driving the buses. It's really nice to have control of it up here, because if you start getting chilly, you just hit that on button, and it worked out very well with the placement of that, because I can just kind of look over my shoulder real quick. I see that it turns on and I can get right back on the road. You know, I can even look at it through my rear view if I turn it down a little bit to see when it says on. And so I just kind of keep this up here to control it, and it's got that little cover that goes over the button so no one can press them accidentally if you put it in your pocket or whatever. The key fob, that's a game changer. You have to be behind the wheel of your bus, hit that little button, and you get heat right there. And it works so well while you're driving. I was keeping it down at about 1 when we were stationary, like chilling in the bus, sleeping and whatnot. But when I was driving, I found 3 and 4 to be my number. When you put on 6, you're gonna cook your butt out of here. Like, it gets hot in here. So you saw with those numbers I was showing you, that was only on like 3. We weren't up to 4, 5, or 6 yet. And I don't know how much it changes it. Maybe just change the intensity of the fan. All in all, I'm extremely happy with it. All right, guys, that's it. We got a couple upgrades that we need to do. I ordered new exhaust pieces, the new pieces front of the seat, but that's the gist of the diesel heater install. This thing's been awesome. I'm super happy with it. I think it's money well spent, and my wife loves it, so that's a bonus. The more I can get her to sleep in my bus when we camp, the better off I am. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Do yourself a favor, if you like air-cooled VW content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Do me a favor and hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you next week.